we do have a preseason game tonight. So
it's a scrimmage.
what do you watch for? What are you looking for? Because you're going to be talking about it. You're on the broadcast. So when players are running back and forth and you have to describe what's happening, what are you going to be looking for tonight?
Well, for me, I just want to see just in general, like, really, you know what I'm looking for, Mike? I'm looking for coaching. I want to see what the coaching is like. Like, first of all, how do they play these guys? Who do they put in? I always look at this, too. Who is the most important player that's going to play? Because I'm assuming we're not going to see DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, right? Not Bobby Wagner. Who else?
Probably not Geno.
No Geno at all, for sure. We know that.
It sounds like no Devin Witherspoon.
Yeah, that maybe with the hamstring. But, I mean, he kind of falls in a different category. I get it. If you're hurt, you're not going to see Jamal Adams, all that. But healthy veterans, you know, who's going to be like the biggest name that plays? And so, you know, I mean, is it Will Dissly, you know, maybe he needs to work in. But that part's going to be interesting, I think, number one. So how do the coaches sort of manage who they play? And then, you know, how do they use certain players? I mean, if Smith and Jigba plays tonight, I mean, are you gonna throw him the ball? Is it going to be a 3 wide receiver set? Is it going to be, you know, regular personnel? So that part of it. And then lastly, and most importantly to me, I'm going to be looking at that front defensively to see how they play against the run. I mean, I think that's the biggest question going in. I feel really good about the offense. I feel like Geno, who's a 70% passer, he made the Pro Bowl last year. You've got really good receivers, and I really believe in this Jackson Smith and Jigba guy. Usually I don't go all in on rookies, but this kid is just special. He's just different. And, it's other than that, you know, I just want to kind of see what happens on that defensive front line.
What about the interior of the offensive line? Because I know we've talked about, you can't really learn much in training camp until the pads go on.
Yes.
And they go on later now. You don't have full hitting, full pads right away. You don't have any of that in the offseason until, you know, the second week of training camp. So now these key reps, is this big for, you know, guys like a center competition or these new linemen that are hoping to crack a spot?
Well, and those are also, I think that's a position that's the hardest for your run-of-the-mill fan to evaluate. You know, I mean, unless you see a guy just truck somebody and, you know, dump him on his back or whatever. But, I mean, I think that's hard to develop. But, you know, when I was on Bump with Stacy, I said, I think Cam Young is going to be interesting. And the one thing about him, this is on the defensive side, obviously, because, you know, you might see Olu in there. That's a guy that there's a battle going on there at center. Same thing with Anthony Bradford, the guard. I mean, we haven't really seen him. So, yeah, you're right. I mean, those guys on the inside, on both sides of the ball, that's where you want to see what's the difference when the pads go on. And I think one of the interesting things about Cam Young is that Pete said he was like a totally different player with pads on. And I think, Mike, check me, I think they've had 3 practices with pads, full pads. Maybe.
Man, it feels like more. But the days and practices all run together.
Yeah, I mean, they had, obviously, the mock game, and then there was twice where the other day we were out there and they were doing one-on-one full, you know, pass rush drills. So, you know, I think Cam Young is a difference maker when he gets in pads because you can't really evaluate those guys when they're in shorts and T-shirts.
Well, here's what Pete Carroll said about this preseason game and the preseason in general about how they want to evaluate these players.
Yeah, we need to see all the new guys for sure. We've got really competitive spots that we need information on. Everybody needs to play football, and so it's these. Like I said, these games are hugely important. But for the guys we haven't had a chance to see before, you know, in our uniforms and playing for us, it's crucial. And they got to show something. They got to show that they're the build-up and all of the prep to get us to this point. We've taken every step in a fashion that I think is in order. So this next step is now it's full running and hitting, and we got to see how it goes.
You know, continuing, Mike, on that coaching theme, like I'm going to be watching the coaches, just what they do, basically, not just actually putting my binoculars on them. But how do they treat the preseason? Because Bump and Stacy were talking about this and just going through all of the matchups, and one of them was Kansas City again. I don't know who they're playing, and Bump said, "Yeah, you're not going to see anybody there. The starters are all going to sit." Last year, I saw Patrick Mahomes in the very first preseason.
He played a little
game.
bit.
He got sacked like twice. So I mean, I guess Andy Reid, he feels like but I don't know if he's going to do that this year. So, but we'll see. I mean, we'll see how Pete handles, you know, and like I said, who's going to be the most established veteran that plays?
Well, I know we'll get into this with Moyer a little bit, but how challenging is it now that you only have one cut-down date? Because that's new for this year. They've tried it in the past, but you go from 90 to 53. I mean, you can cut guys whenever, but there's no, okay, after week 1, you have to get down to 85. And after week 2, you have to get down to like 70. They're going to carry as many as they want until that final cut-down day on August 29th. That's got to be a heck of a challenge with all those players fighting for reps.
Yeah. That one's interesting. I think the GMs and the coaches like it, and we'll have to ask Schneider about this, because I would think it would be the opposite. I would much rather, have the cut down date and just slowly, and then at the end, there's usually 8 guys that they cut. That way it used to be anyway. So one big roster cut down all at once. Yeah, you're right. I mean, if you're gonna, how does that affect reps? I mean, if you have guys that you want to take a look at. So I guess what it means is you're going to see the guys that are on the bubble, right? You're going to see mostly, because they don't need to see Bobby Wagner and Gino. One kind of a tweener maybe that maybe might be the most established guy that gets a lot of reps is Bush, Devin Bush.
Yeah.
Haven't seen much from him out at practice.
Well, I was saying that, and maybe what Pete Carroll just said there. What about Dre Jones? Because he's new to the system. I mean, he's an established guy, but if you're trying to, like you said, if you're trying to see that defense and really the core of who are going to be big contributors, along with Devin Bush, well, Bush is a new guy in the system. Draymond Jones, new to this system, and he figures to be a key part of it. So I wonder how much he's going to go out there tonight.
Yeah, that's a good one, too. Jaron Reed maybe as well. I mean, Jaron's a little bit more of a established veteran, I guess, than Dre Jones. But, yeah, I think that's an interesting one as well. But, yeah, just what's their personnel like? How are they playing the run gaps and everything? And then who Pete talks about the young guys with the splash, but, who has the big hit or makes the big play?